Just keep your mouth shut and stop making such a big deal, my mom demanded after abandoning me in hospital. But I chose to tell CPS the truth instead. I'm 20 years old. I thought I had my family situation figured out. Sure, it wasn't perfect. My stepdad Jason clearly favored his own kids, and my mom seemed to forget I existed whenever he was around. But I'd learned to live with it, to swallow my hurt and keep the peace. That is, until a car accident forced me to see what had been right in front of me all along. The crash happened so fast. One moment we were driving home, discussing whether the clothes we'd bought would meet Jason's exacting standards, and the next, chaos. The sound of metal crunching and glass shattering filled my ears as another car slammed into us from behind. I remember the world spinning, the airbag deploying, and then a searing pain in my arm that made me want to scream. Mom got lucky, just some scrapes and bruises. Me, not so much. The paramedics said I had a concussion and my arm was definitely broken. I kept drifting in and out of focus as they loaded me into the ambulance, the lights too bright and every bump in the road sending waves of pain through my body. That's when the drama with Jason started. Even before we reached the hospital, Mom's phone was buzzing nonstop. I could hear her side of the conversation from my stretcher. Yes, Jason, we're okay? Well, mostly. He broke his arm and has a concussion. I know the trip is tomorrow. No, I don't know how long they'll keep his. I understand about the non-refundable deposits. Even through my concussion-addled brain, I could hear Mom's voice changing, that familiar tone she got when Jason was pushing for something. He'd always been good at that, making his priorities become her priorities, even when it came to her own son. The first day in the hospital was a blur of doctors, nurses, and x-rays. Mom sat in the corner, constantly texting Jason, her face growing more stressed with each message. I knew that look. I'd seen it countless times before, when Jason convinced her to skip my high school orchestra performances because his sons had baseball games, when she missed my 18th birthday dinner because Jason had planned a surprise weekend trip, when she stopped attending parent-teacher conferences because they conflicted with Jason's family game nights. Mom, I said, trying to keep my voice steady despite the fear and pain, you'll stay with me, right? She wouldn't meet my eyes. Honey, you know we have the trip tomorrow. Jason says we can't get a refund this late and the boys have been looking forward to it for months. But I'm in the hospital, I protested, my voice cracking. The doctors said I need monitoring because of the concussion. Please, Mom. The nurses will monitor you, she replied, still not looking at me. Jason says we can have the doctor check on you when you get home. She's watched you before. The next morning, they left. Mom kissed my forehead, promised to call, and walked out, leaving me alone in a hospital room with a broken arm and a head that wouldn't stop spinning. I tried to sleep, but the pain kept me awake. Every time a nurse came to check on me, I hoped it would be Mom coming back, realizing what she'd done. But she never came. After a day of being alone, the reality of my situation finally hit me. I couldn't hold back the tears anymore. One of the nurses found me crying and couldn't believe I was by myself. "Sweetheart, where's your family?" she asked, her kind face creased with concern. "On vacation," I managed to say between sobs. In Cabo, her expression said everything. She offered to call my mom, but I just shook my head. "They won't answer. They're probably at the beach by now." She insisted on calling someone, so I gave her my dad's number. Dad and I weren't as close as we used to be, another casualty of Mom and Jason's relationship. Jason had made it clear from the start that he didn't like my dad being around, and gradually, the weekends with Dad had become more sporadic. Mom always had an excuse ready. Jason had planned a family outing, or his sons had an event, or it just wasn't convenient that weekend. I could hear my dad's voice on the other end as the nurse explained the situation. His tone changed immediately when she mentioned the accident. "What do you mean, broken arm and concussion? Your mom told me it was just a fender bender." There was a pause. "He's alone. Where's his mother?" The nurse handed me the phone, and Dad's voice was tight with barely controlled anger. "Why didn't you call me sooner?" "Mom said she told you it wasn't serious," I explained, tears welling up again. "And Jason said they couldn't waste the vacation money, and Mom agreed, and I didn't know what to do." There was a long silence, broken only by what sounded like Dad taking deep breaths to calm himself. I'm coming, he finally said. I'll be there in 2 hours. Don't worry about anything else, okay? Dad's coming. True to his word, Dad arrived in record time. When he walked into my room, the dam broke and I started sobbing again. He hugged me carefully, mindful of my arm, and I could feel him trembling with suppressed rage. I'm so sorry, he whispered. I should have checked on you myself. I should have known better than to trust what your mother said. This isn't the first time she's chosen Jason over you, is it? I shook my head, unable to speak. Dad spent the next hour talking with my doctors, getting copies of all my medical records and taking pictures of my injuries. I recognized his lawyer mode kicking in, the same focus he got when preparing for a big case. Over the next 2 days, Dad didn't leave my side. He took leave from work, slept in the uncomfortable hospital chair, and made sure I was never alone. When I was finally discharged, he insisted I come home with him instead of going back to Jason's house. I'm not leaving you with a babysitter when you're injured, he said firmly. You're coming home, your real home. Once I was settled at Dad's place, the messages started flooding in. Mom claimed she had missed Dad's calls because she was having so much fun with Jason and his sons. Jason was furious that I'd tattled to my dad, sending angry texts about how I was ruining their vacation. All you had to do was keep quiet, Jason wrote. Real selfish of you to make such a big deal out of this. Your mother is upset now, and it's your fault. Dad saw the messages and his jaw tightened. He tried calling Mom again, and this time she answered. I could hear him from the other room. Are you out of your mind? You abandoned our injured son in the hospital to go on vacation with your husband's kids. Do you have any idea how serious this is? Mom must have tried to defend herself because Dad's voice got even angrier. No, you listen to me. This isn't just bad parenting anymore. This is neglect. Leaving an injured minor alone in the hospital to go on vacation. That's the kind of thing that makes judges very unhappy. And believe me, a judge will be hearing about this. When he came back into my room, his face was red with anger, but his voice was gentle. I'm going to fix this. I should have stepped in sooner, but I was trying to keep the peace, trying not to make waves. That stops now. No more letting your mother and Jason treat you like an afterthought. For the first time since the accident, I felt truly safe. Dad might not have been perfect, but he was here, and he was fighting for me. That was more than I could say for Mom and Jason, who were probably still on their beach in Cabo, annoyed that their vacation had been ruined by my inconvenient injuries. Looking back now, I realized the car accident didn't just break my arm. It broke the illusion that my mom would ever choose me over Jason and his perfect family image. But it also showed me that sometimes the parent who truly loves you isn't the one you've been trying so hard to please. It's the one who drops everything to be by your side when you need them most. Update 1. A lot of you asked about my family after my first post, and honestly, it's complicated. You know how they say you don't really know someone until you see them at their worst? Well, I guess it took a car accident for me to finally see the truth about my family. I can pinpoint exactly when everything started to fall apart. It wasn't the divorce itself, though that was hard enough. No, it was the day Mom brought Jason home for dinner, all smiles and nervous energy like a teenager introducing her first boyfriend. I was 16 then, still trying to find my footing in our post-divorce world, and suddenly there was this stranger sitting in my dad's old chair, acting like he owned the place. From day one, Jason made it clear that he had his own vision for our family, one that didn't really include me. He had 2 sons from his previous marriage, and it was like watching a slow-motion takeover. Suddenly, our walls were covered with photos of his boys' baseball games. Our weekends revolved around their activities. Even our family dinner conversations shifted to revolve around them. But the worst part? Watching my mom change. The woman who used to check my homework every night, who never missed a school event, who knew all my friends by name, she just faded away. Replaced by someone who seemed desperate to please Jason, who would cancel our plans the moment he suggested something else, who started viewing me through his eyes instead of her own. Maybe if you tried harder to fit in, she'd say whenever I expressed frustration. Jason just wants what's best for all of us, that's a joke. What she meant was what's best for Jason and his perfect little family image. I tried at first. God, did I try? I went to his son's games. I smiled in the family photos. I kept quiet when he criticized my clothes, my friends, my hobbies, but nothing was ever good enough. Your attitude needs adjustment, he'd say while Mom nodded along. You're being difficult on purpose. Difficult. That became their favorite word for me. Difficult when I wanted to spend weekends with my dad. Difficult when I didn't want to cancel plans with my friends to attend his family functions. Difficult when I didn't embrace his sons as my real brothers. The thing is, it wasn't just about Jason being a bad stepdad. Plenty of kids deal with that. It was watching my mom slowly erase me from her life, like I was an inconvenient reminder of her past that didn't fit into her shiny new future with Jason. Every time she chose his preferences over my needs, every time she backed his decisions over my feelings, a little piece of our relationship died. I learned to live with it, sort of. But deep down, I kept hoping that if things ever really mattered, if I ever really needed her, my mom would remember who she used to be. Would remember me. I guess it took a car accident to show me how wrong I was about that. Update 2. A lot of you have been asking what happened after my dad got involved. Well, buckle up, because things got even messier. Dad didn't waste any time. He reported Mom and Jason to CPS the day after I was discharged from the hospital. It wasn't an easy decision for him. I could see him struggling with it, knowing how it might affect everyone involved. But in the end, he couldn't ignore what they'd done. The first sign that Mom and Jason were in trouble came when they suddenly cut their Cabo trip short. Apparently, CPS officials had contacted them, and the gravity of the situation finally hit home. They had to answer questions about their decision to leave me behind, their reasoning, and their understanding of their parental responsibilities. From what I heard later, it wasn't a comfortable conversation. Mom's call came while I was still recovering at Dad's place, my arm throbbing in its cast. I shouldn't have been surprised by her tactics, but somehow, she still managed to catch me off guard with the sheer intensity of her manipulation. She started with anger, launching straight into accusations without even asking about my injuries. The blame was immediate and heavy. How could I let Dad involve CPS? Did I understand the trouble I was causing? Then came the whispered instructions about what to tell CPS. She had it all planned out. I was supposed to say it was just a misunderstanding, that she had arranged proper care, that I had actually encouraged them to go on the trip. She wanted me to paint a completely false picture, one where she hadn't abandoned her injured child for a beach vacation. The way she laid it out, so calculated and precise, made me wonder how many times she'd rewritten reality like this before. When I hesitated, she escalated to emotional warfare. It was fascinating, in a horrible way, watching her cycle through different manipulation tactics. First came the guilt trip about family loyalty. Then the threats about what might happen if I didn't comply, how I might be taken away from her, how I'd be destroying our family. Each threat was carefully crafted to play on my deepest fears and insecurities. The really insidious part was how she weaponized my entire childhood. After everything I've done for you, she said, her voice trembling. All the nights I stayed up with you when you were sick, all the school events I attended, all the times I put your needs first, and this is how you repay me, by letting your father turn you against me. But her masterpiece of manipulation came when she brought Jason into it. She knew exactly how to use his situation to maximize my guilt. Suddenly, I wasn't just betraying her, I was potentially responsible for breaking up another family. She painted a vivid picture of how Jason's ex-wife might use this against him, how his sons might suffer. The implication was clear. If anything happened to Jason's custody arrangement, it would be my fault for telling the truth. When these tactics didn't work, she tried gaslighting. Suddenly, the hospital incident wasn't even that bad. She minimized everything, my injuries, my fear, my loneliness. According to her revised version, I was just being dramatic, like always. The manipulation continued over the next few days through calls and texts. She would switch between angry accusations and tearful pleas, sometimes in the same message. One moment she was threatening that I'd regret my decisions. The next she was reminiscing about my childhood and begging me to remember how much she loved me. Jason joined in too, though his approach was more overtly threatening. His messages focused on the family dynamic and how my actions would have long-term consequences. He was less concerned with emotional manipulation and more focused on intimidation, making vague but menacing statements about how I would regret causing trouble. What struck me most was how neither of them ever acknowledged my actual experience. Not once did Mom ask about my pain, my fear, my feelings. Her entire focus was on damage control, protecting herself, protecting Jason, protecting their perfect family image. My well-being was, as always, an afterthought. But their tactics didn't work this time. When I spoke to CPS, I told them everything. Not just about being abandoned in the hospital, but about the years of emotional neglect that led up to it. I described how I'd been gradually pushed aside after Jason entered our lives, how my needs were consistently deprioritized in favor of his sons, how I'd been made to feel like an unwelcome guest in my own home. The aftermath was swift and serious. CPS issued Mom a formal warning and mandated parenting classes and counseling. They made it clear that any further incidents of neglect would have severe consequences. Jason received his own warning, though his primary concern seemed to be how this might affect his custody arrangement with his ex-wife, ironically proving that Mom's manipulation about his custody situation had been yet another calculated lie. Living with Dad now, I'm still processing everything, and Mom still tries her tactics occasionally, but they don't work anymore. The hospital incident didn't just break my arm, it broke her power to make me doubt my own reality. For now, I'm healing, both physically and emotionally. Dad provides the stability I need, never making me question my worth or my place in his life. It's strange being someone's priority after so long being someone's afterthought, but I'm learning to accept it. Sometimes the hardest part of breaking free from manipulation is believing you deserve better. Update 3. It's weird how much can change in 4 months. Now I have been living with my dad. Dad's place isn't fancy like Jason's house. It's a modest 3-bedroom apartment, and my room is smaller than my old one. But it feels more like home than anywhere I've lived in the past 3 years. Maybe because Dad actually cares about what I think and feel, not just how things look on the surface. Last month was my birthday, and for the first time in forever, I got to celebrate how I wanted. No awkward family dinner where Jason's sons got better presents than me. Just pizza, movies, and friends sprawled across Dad's living room floor. Dad even attempted to bake a cake. It was lopsided and the frosting was a mess, but it was made with love. That means more than all of Jason's expensive, professionally made cakes ever did. Mom's been texting more lately. Long paragraphs about how sorry she is, how much she misses me, how things can be different. Sometimes it makes my heart ache. I miss her too, not the person she became with Jason, but the mom she used to be. But then I remember lying alone in that hospital bed, my arm throbbing, wondering if I mattered to her at all. I remember all the times she chose Jason's preferences over my needs. I remember her trying to manipulate me into lying to CPS. The guilt fades pretty quickly after that. I've told her I'm not ready to come back, and I'm working on not feeling bad about that. My therapist says it's okay to love someone but still need distance from them. She says it's okay to prioritize my own healing. I'm trying to believe that. Jason predictably hasn't apologized. He sent one text saying I was tearing the family apart with my attitude, but otherwise radio silence. Honestly, I'm okay with that. The hospital incident showed me exactly where I stood with him, somewhere below his vacation plans and his perfect family image. I don't need that kind of conditional acceptance in my life anymore. I'm learning that family isn't about who makes the most demands or who can afford the fanciest vacations. It's about who shows up when you need them, who makes you feel safe, who loves you even when you're not fitting into their perfect picture. Dad's not perfect. Sometimes he burns dinner and he still hasn't figured out how to properly separate laundry. But he's here. He's present. He sees me as a person, not an inconvenience or an accessory to his ideal family life. And right now, that's exactly what I need.